22 years on the water. I don't believe in haunted platforms. I believe in as-built drawings. I believe in steel thickness readings and anode potentials, and the fact that a fixed jacket structure in 85 meters of water has a finite number of decks, and every single one of them is on a blueprint somewhere in a filing cabinet in Houston. That's what I believed. Still do, mostly. Except for ship Shoal 332A. Late October 2005. 6 weeks after Katrina. The whole Western Gulf was a salvage yard. Platforms knocked off their jackets, rigs sitting on the bottom, pipeline risers snapped like spaghetti. Every dive company and inspection outfit with a current Hewitt cert was pulling 12-hour days assessing damage for the underwriters. I was contracted through CalDive, day rate welder, structural inspection support. They put me on a 6-man crew heading to ship Shoal Block 332. Fixed jacket, 8 legs, Conoco installation from 1983. 85 meters of water, 120 miles south of Morgan City. The platform had been shut in since August 27th. Last logbook entry said what they all said that summer. Platform secured for storm. All personnel evacuated. STA status. Crew boat out of Port Fourchon. 180-foot Shoal, 5-hour transit, seas 3 to 4 feet. I've made that run 100 times. You eat whatever the galleys got, try to sleep through the diesel vibration. I just watched the brown water turn green and the green water turn gray. We tied up at the boat landing around 1400. First thing on a dead platform, get the generator running, pressurize the potable water, get gas detection online. You don't breathe easy on a shut-in platform until those H2S monitors read 0. Everything came up clean. The platform was in better shape than most of what we'd seen that month. The lead inspector was a guy named Harlan Doucet. 30 years with Conoco, knew every fixed platform in the Ship Shoal and South Marsh Island blocks like he'd built them. He spread the as-built drawing package on the galley table after supper. 13 sheets, standard for a jacket this size. Structural plans, piping isometrics, electrical one-lines. We were dividing up the inspection zones when I noticed it. Sheet S014. Subcellar deck B, plan view, elevation minus 12.0 meters. I'd worked platforms like this my whole career. Fixed jackets in the Gulf, they've got a cellar deck up top where the wellheads are, a production deck, maybe a mezzanine, a pipe deck, and one subcellar deck down near the waterline. Subcellar A on this platform sat at elevation minus 2 meters, just below mean sea level. Waves slosh through the open grating. It's wet, it's loud, and it's the lowest place you can walk on the structure without getting in the water. But S014 showed a second subcellar deck, 10 meters below the waterline, inside the jacket, between the 72-inch legs, at a depth where there should be nothing but seawater and marine growth and anode sleds. The drawing had a Conoco revision stamp, dated 1983. Same block, same border format, same title block as every other sheet in the package. It looked right. It looked like it belonged there. I showed it to Harlan. He looked at it for maybe 5 seconds, flipped to the index sheet, ran his finger down the drawing list. 13 sheets, he said. That's what the index says. 13 sheets. He flipped to S014 again, stared at it, then closed the package. Abandoned design revision. Somebody left it in the package 20 years ago. Happens all the time. And that was that. You don't argue with the lead inspector on a day rate job. You just don't. He's got 30 years. You've got a per diem and a boat ride home if you make trouble. So we went to bed. I took a bunk in the quarters module, same as always. Diesel generator humming through the deck plates. Wind pushing maybe 15 knots outside. The platform creaking the way they do. Steel on steel. Thermal expansion, wave loading on the jacket legs, normal sounds. Sounds I'd slept through 1,000 times. But I kept thinking about that drawing, not because it scared me, because it was right. The line weights, the dimension strings, the weld callouts on the bracing connections. Whoever drew it knew exactly what a subcellar deck looked like at minus 12 meters inside an 8-leg jacket. They knew where the pipe supports would go, where the cable trays would run, where you'd put a chemical injection skid at that elevation. It wasn't a draft, it was an as-built, a drawing of something that had already been constructed. I told myself Harlan was right. Abandoned revision. Happens all the time. I almost believed it. Next morning, 0600. Coffee in the galley, wind dropped to 10 knots, swells maybe 2 feet. Good weather for below-deck work. Harlan assigned me and the structural engineer, a quiet guy from Lafayette named Benoit, to subcellar deck A. Check the bracing welds, photograph storm damage, take UT thickness readings on the legs at the splash zone. We went down the internal access ladder. 4 flights of steel stairs inside the jacket, each louder than the last as you get closer to the waterline. Subcellar A sits at minus 2 meters, just below mean sea level. The gulf comes in through the open grating, sloshing across your boots, retreating, coming back. You work wet down there. That's just what minus 2 meters is. Storm damage was minor. One handrail bent 30 degrees. Wave loading. Probably a 15-footer during the eye wall. Some cable tray pulled loose. Nothing structural. I started weld inspections on the jacket bracing while Benoit photographed. Mag particle testing on the node welds, checking for fatigue cracks. The kind of work where you forget about everything except the weld in front of you. I was on my second node, the southeast brace at the minus 2 meter elevation, when Benoit said my name. Not loud, not panicked, just flat. The way you say something when you're not sure you should be saying it. He was standing at the far side of the deck, near the access ladder. The ladder we'd come down on. He was looking at the grating below his feet. I walked over, and I looked down. The access ladder continued, through the grating, down into what should have been seawater. Except it wasn't seawater. It was another deck, dry, lit by those yellow emergency battery lights they put on every offshore structure. The ones that kick on when main power goes out and just stay on until the batteries die. 12 meters below us, 12 meters below the waterline. I could see the grating, the handrails, equipment skids bolted to the deck. All of it dry, all of it lit. I looked out through the jacket legs. The ocean was right there, the surface of the Gulf of Mexico, blue-green and moving, at 0 meters MSL, exactly where it should be, and 10 meters below that surface, a dry steel deck. I mean, what do you do with that? I've been underwater at 85 meters. I know what water does. It goes down, it fills things. It doesn't just stop. I radioed Harlan topside, told him what we were looking at. Long pause. He asked me to repeat. I repeated. Another pause. Then he asked if I'd checked my gas monitor. 20.9% oxygen, 0 H2S, 0 LEL. I wasn't hallucinating. Benoit wasn't either. Harlan came down, stood at the top of the ladder to deck B, and stared for a long time. Then he said, "Well, let's go see what it is." We went down. I still don't have a way to talk about what that felt like. Climbing down a steel ladder into a space that shouldn't exist. The air was cool, maybe 62 degrees. It smelled like new steel, like a fab yard. Not salt, not rust, not marine growth, new metal. Subcellar deck B was real. I put my hand on the grating, and it was solid. Pipe supports, cable trays, junction boxes. A chemical injection skid, Sundyne pump, looked like a 200 GPM unit. An 8-inch pig launcher rated for 1500 PSI. A small control panel with a blank screen. Benoit found the data plates. He started photographing them, and about the third one he stopped. He read it out loud. Manufactured 1981. Purchase order Charlie X-ray 7714. Destination, Ship Shoal 332B. 332B. Everyone who worked the Ship Shoal blocks knew that name. 332B was the sister platform. Planned, designed, fabricated, never installed. August 1981, the installation barge MV Iron Duke capsized during the jacket set. 4 construction hands went into the water. None came back. Project canceled. Jacket scrapped. 332B never existed. But I was standing on it. I walked over to the pipe connections on the chemical injection skid. The welds were fresh, bright metal, no oxidation, not even a light rust bloom, like somebody had laid them down that morning. And the bead pattern, 6G position, tight stitch weave, 3/16 leg on the fillet. I knew that pattern. I've welded that way for 22 years. Nobody taught me. I taught myself on a pipeline job in Forshaw in 1988. I had never set foot on this platform before yesterday. Those welds were mine, and they were dated 1981. 7 years before I picked up a stinger for the first time. I should have gone back up. 22 years of offshore training says when conditions change, you stop the job. Well, conditions had changed. We were standing on a deck that the ocean should have swallowed 24 years ago. But Harlan didn't give the order. And I saw the control panel. It was at the far end of Deck B, bolted to a pipe support. Small industrial gray housing. It had a screen, and the screen was on. The display showed depth, minus 12.4 meters. Correct. But next to it, a second reading, levels below, 7. 7 more decks below the one we were standing on. Benoit held up his dive computer, wore it from habit. It read minus 85 meters. The seabed depth at ship Shoal 332. His computer thought he was at the bottom of the ocean. My hard hat depth gauge, calibrated at 0 on the cellar deck that morning. Read 0.0, sea level. 3 instruments, 3 readings, minus 12, minus 85, 0, all at the same time. I looked down through the grating, another ladder going down, another deck, identical grating, identical handrails, and below that, another. Yellow battery lights stretched down in a column, each deck a dim copy of the one above, shrinking like looking down a well. 7 decks below, exactly what the screen said. Harlan, I said. My voice sounded wrong down there, flat, like the air was eating the echo. Harlan, we need to go. He didn't answer. He was looking down too. Then he grabbed my arm, hard enough to leave a bruise I still had a week later, and pointed. On the lowest visible deck, 7 levels down, there was a figure, coveralls, hood down, holding a stinger, arc light burning. That unmistakable blue-white flash of a 70-18 rod in the 6G position. The posture, the left hand bracing the pipe, the slight lean forward. I know how I weld. I've watched my own shadow on pipe racks for 2 decades. The figure on the 7th deck was me, not someone who looked like me. Me, Harlan said one word. Up. And we went. I don't remember climbing those ladders. I remember being on subcellar A, wet boots, Gulf water sloshing, daylight from above, real. I remember Benoit's hands shaking when he lit a cigarette on the pipe deck, even though smoking on a production platform will get you fired on the next helicopter. Harlan pulled the as-built drawings, counted the sheets. 13. S01 through S0113. S014 was gone. Nobody said anything about it. Not then. Not ever. The dive support vessel ran an ROV survey next day. Class 3 inspection, full video. I watched the feed in the control room. The ROV descended along the southeast jacket leg. 72-inch steel, marine growth, anode sleds, cathodic protection at negative 850 millivolts. Open water between the legs, no grating, no decks, no lights, just the Gulf of Mexico, all the way to the mud line at 85 meters. The inspection report was filed 2 weeks later. Subcellar Deck A, minor storm damage, handrail repair required, cable tray resupport, no access to below waterline structures. Recommend continued cathodic protection monitoring per NACE RPO 176. That's what the report says. That's all it says. I quit offshore 6 months later, didn't make a thing of it, just didn't re-up my contract when it came due. Moved to Galveston, got a shop job doing structural steel for commercial buildings, inside work, dry work. Work where the floor doesn't go deeper than the foundation. I kept one thing from that job, one photograph. I took it on my phone while we were on Deck B, the data plate on the Sundyne pump. It reads, Ship Shoal 332B, PODHAC CX 7714, manufactured 1981. The EXIF data on that photo says it was taken at 28°250 north, 91°50 west, at an elevation of minus 12.0 meters, minus 12 meters, standing on dry steel in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. SS-332A is still out there. I checked the BSEE records last year. Still producing, still manned, 2-2 rotation, 12-hour shifts, supply boat on Tuesdays, 13 sheets in the as-built package, I'm sure of that. I can't stop wondering how many decks are below the last